Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a city gripped by fear, where an unseen killer lurks in the shadows? Today, we're diving into one of the most terrifying unsolved cases of all time, the story of Jack the Ripper, a killer who has haunted London for over a century. In 1888, the streets of London's Whitechapel district were far from peaceful. The area was known for its poverty, crime, and overcrowding. But in the fall of that year, something even more sinister arrived, an unknown killer who would go down in history as one of the world's most infamous murderers, Jack the Ripper. The Ripper's victims were women, mostly prostitutes who lived in Whitechapel. Their lives were already hard enough, but now they faced the terrifying prospect of being hunted by a brutal killer who seemed to strike at will. Jack the Ripper's reign of terror was short, lasting just a few months, but the brutality of his murders and the mystery surrounding his identity has made this case one of the most famous in criminal history. Between August and November of 1888, 5 women were brutally murdered in Whitechapel. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. These women became known as the Canonical Five, the victims most commonly associated with Jack the Ripper. Each was killed in a manner that shocked even the most hardened police officers and medical examiners of the time. Let's talk about the crimes. Jack the Ripper's killings were not just brutal, they were gruesome. The Ripper didn't just kill his victims, he mutilated them. Throats were slashed, bodies were disemboweled, and in some cases internal organs were removed. This level of violence suggested that the killer had at least some knowledge of human anatomy, leading some to speculate that he might have been a surgeon. But despite the brutality of the crimes, Jack the Ripper was never seen by a reliable witness, and his identity remains a mystery. As the body count rose, the police were under intense pressure to catch the killer. The streets of Whitechapel were crawling with officers, and yet Jack the Ripper continued to evade them. But he wasn't just a killer, he was a manipulator. He toyed with the authorities, sending taunting letters to the police and local newspapers. In one of his most infamous letters, which was signed Jack the Ripper, he mocked the police for their failure to catch him, saying, "I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for jolly." This letter included a gruesome detail. Inside was a piece of a human kidney, supposedly taken from one of his victims. Despite the media frenzy and massive police investigations, Jack the Ripper's identity was never uncovered. Over 100 suspects were named, from local butchers to well-known public figures, but none of them could be definitively linked to the crimes. The lack of forensic technology in the 19th century made it difficult for investigators to gather any solid evidence, and as time passed, the trail went cold. So, who was Jack the Ripper? Over the years, many theories have emerged. Some of the most notable suspects include Montague John Druitt, a barrister who drowned himself shortly after the last Ripper murder, Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant with a history of mental illness, and Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's physician, who was part of a theory that Jack the Ripper's murders were part of a royal conspiracy to cover up a scandal. One of the more modern suspects is Walter Sickert, a British painter whose artwork depicted disturbing and violent imagery. Some believe his paintings reflected an intimate knowledge of the murders. In the early 2000s, crime writer Patricia Cornwell famously claimed that Sickert was the Ripper, based on forensic analysis of letters supposedly written by the killer. While her theory sparked intense debate, it hasn't been conclusively proven. Another suspect that often comes up is Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber who was committed to an asylum not long after the murders. In 2014, a controversial forensic analysis of a shawl found at the scene of one of the Ripper murders suggested Kosminski's DNA might have been present. However, many experts question the reliability of this evidence due to contamination over the years. Yet, despite these many theories and countless investigations, Jack the Ripper's identity remains one of history's greatest mysteries. The case files, letters, and theories continue to be studied by historians, criminologists, and amateur sleuths. But why has this case fascinated us for so long? That's all for today. Thanks for watching till the end. Do not forget to subscribe Shadowsphere.